day of really interesting, robust discussions on very different, very diverse topics. Hopefully, you're all here and ready to, take the mic and tell us all these issues, all these highlights, all these policy directions and recommendations that you want to see in this year's Synthesis Town Hall document. I'm not going to really take too much time explaining what this is because we want to jump right in. But I do want to remind everyone that this town hall session is for you. We want to hear your voice. And this helps us shape the synthesis document, which is one of the key highlights and key innovation outputs from the APrIGF every year. We actually take this document to the global IGF, and it serves as an input from our region, as well as has inspired processes started in different national and regional initiatives as well. So without further ado, I would like to hand off to our two co-chairs, Brenda and Sherry. And Sherry will be taking it away, going right back to the thematic tracks and listening to all your inputs. Sherry, please.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 and the last day of the town hall sessions. Thank you for joining us. We had a good discussion yesterday. There were a lot of valuable points around the 3 themes, sub-themes that we have. Jen, if we could go on to the next slide, please. And we had a lot of discussions around inclusion and trust, and we're hoping to get a lot of feedback around sustainability today. We know that the internet has evolved, and with it has been a lot of technological advancements and just development in communities around agriculture, environment, and through the development of digital economies and substantial advancements in science, agriculture, even in e-health and education. One of the questions we want to ask is, how can the community stakeholders, discussions like this, how can we help create a sustainable world? I mentioned that we had a good discussion yesterday. A lot of valuable points were raised. We're still waiting for these to get updated onto the drafting doc. So, if you have time today, Jen is just going to go over how easy it is for you to comment on the synthesis document draft 0 that we have. Jen, if you could please just take us through that so that we can show everyone that it really is easy, and we want to capture all these discussions and points that have been raised in the last 2 days.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherry. Hopefully everybody can see the screen right now. Currently, we are on the comment platform for draft 0. As you can see, it is comment.aprigf.asia. Just, it's very easy to click on that, go to the browser, and actually you can go there right now during the session. I think I briefly went through this yesterday, but I haven't brought people through it live. Each paragraph is numbered, and if you want to leave a comment, you can just click on the little speech bubble, and it will bring you to this this bar on the right-hand side. Your name is required, and I'll just type my name there, and your email, which will not be it will not be published, but it is required for you to leave a comment, and then if you wanted to add your own website, you can also do that. And then your actual comment just goes here. Once you're done with that, and you can press submit comment, and it will appear in real time right here. So I do want to say that there's been so much great discussion yesterday and today, but we really do need you to reflect these great discussions, these highlights, and these important points that you want to see in this document actually on the comment platform, so that the drafting committee can then take all this input and turn it and synthesize it into the next draft for your review. So this is, just a very easy and quick instructions on how to leave your inputs. Back to you, Sherry.
Thanks, and we'll now open the floor to anybody that has any comments on any of the themes or any discussions today. Do I see any hands up? Does anybody want to go first? So going back to our theme
I'll
on...
jump in. Audio.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you, Sherry. Cheryl Langdon from Australia. I thought today's lineup of sessions was excellent. I thought the topics were good. Okay, I'm biased. I was part of the program committee, but I did think they did what they said on the label. I think we still need some encouragement to get a little more interaction with participants as opposed to panelists. Maybe we need to do more prep work or something, but we can think about that at some other point in time, I guess. But I did think the content base was very. That's the kick off to start talking.
Thank you, Cheryl. We might have to ask you to put a little bit of what you said on the chat because you might have cut off there in the last few seconds. And yes, Raj, we recognize the same thing happened yesterday. Zoom and Cheryl are not best friends. Edmund, I can see that you have your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to say? Would this be about, in addition to, we had the topic on sustainability and there was a carbon footprint for the internet session yesterday. We're hoping if maybe you could just give us some comments from that session and anything else that you might want to add some comments on.
Yeah, well, I put my hand up to get the conversation started. Hopefully others would put their hand up as well. I wanted to highlight a little bit the session that talked about the internet universality indicators, and it relates to what we're doing in the carbon footprint as well. I think it's great to see the IUI from UNESCO being developed and put in place. I recall a few years earlier, one of the consultation sessions that led to the IUI, the Internet Universality Indicators, actually happened here in APrIGF. So hoping that the we can feature that a little bit more this year, and especially some of the work that is already being done than some of the countries that are putting actual reports together, and it's not just a framework for discussion. And a big part of it is sustainability, both on especially on the sustainability of the network itself. But as you mentioned, yesterday we had a session on sustainability in the sense of the environmental impact of the internet, and Rohit yesterday also addressed the issue a little bit, but mostly it's becoming the carbon footprint of the internet is becoming, for sure it's increasing, right? Because there are more people that are online, there's more data that's being transmitted. One of the things that is highlighted in the session is that being said, sometimes it's not just about, it's definitely not about using less of the internet, because the utilizing the internet actually replaces some of the even more environmentally impactful issues. Like there's previous years there's been talk about how much of a footprint of watching a video online is, but that, if compared with driving to a cinema and actually watching it there, is like not even close in terms of the carbon footprint. So we have to think through, we have to make it, and in terms of shaping the policy and the conversation in this area, we really need to think through what we are asking people to do less, and what is actually beneficial to do more online. Definitely not asking people to be online less, but we need to bring a balance, and we also need to take a look at the energy that's powering the network. That perhaps more than anything else, the grid, the power grid, is how we can, as a community, advocate for the energy sector to pay better attention into turning that into renewable energy to power the internet. That's probably a bigger topic that we need to think about as well. And that's some of the things that came out from that session.
Thank you, Edmund, for kickstarting this session with that great feedback. Is there anybody else that would like to add on from Edmund's points that he has raised?
This is Jen, actually, if I may, since the Internet Technical Success Factor was another showcase session that we had today, and it falls squarely under the sustainability track. If I am not mistaken, I do see some people who did attend that session, and also some of the organizers of that session here. Thank you, Joyce. I was just about to call on you. Please, Joyce.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Jennifer, and hello, Sherry and everyone. Sorry, I was a bit slow to raise my hand because I'm also in parallel in the IGF NEC meeting and open consultations. So that's just a shout out to everyone that's happening starting today till Friday. If you want to join that other event as well and you want to spend your nights with us. So yeah, just to talk about the showcase on the Internet's technical success factors, we looked at 4 attributes. So scalability, flexibility, adaptability, and resilience. And I think out of the 4, we would have at least 2 or 3 of those factors that would be very neatly be able to be under the sustainability theme. I'm also thinking how we might be able to add some of the discussions from today into the trust theme. I think there's a lot to be said there, particularly the session on the interoperable internet, which was another session, slightly similar, but looking at slightly different attributes of the internet. That one was really looking more at the distributed nature, the decentralized nature of the internet, and how that kind of is interwoven with emerging regulations. And so I will work with some others to put some language into the synthesis document, capturing the discussion points from today. But just to say that it was very interesting, and if other people in the audience, if you feel strongly about any one of the aspects that were discussed, please do also provide your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Joyce. There is a question in the chat from Ying about do virtual meetings mitigate carbon footprint? Does anybody have an answer to that? Edmund, would you be able to answer that, please?
Well, that's a good question, but yeah, the obvious answer is that we definitely had less flights coming in to the meeting. But I think, again, once again, this is a kind of balance, right? I mean, the face-to-face meeting brings a lot of tactile, thing to the event, and also the relationships that are built. How do you value that? So it's not like I'm certainly, at least at this point, not in the camp that says we could do without face-to-face meeting for forever. I think that there are good value for having those, but certainly having remote participation and this type of mode is very important. And if you talk about it in an absolute sense, then yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lower carbon footprint if we do it virtually. but think about all the better advocacy that we might be able to do in an actual face-to-face meeting. If that's not the case, then none of the environmental conferences should ever happen, right? So I guess it's always that's where I want to make the point that it needs to be a balance, and we need to figure out what the values we're actually fighting for.
Thanks, Edmund. Ying, I hope that answers your question. Rita, I saw you mentioned something in the chat about hearing comments about the different sessions from people. I also heard you put forward some comments in some of the sessions that you were in today. Would you like to comment on that for the drafting document? Can I pick on you for that, please? That's all right. No worries about that. But we'd like to hear from others about the sessions that you were part of today. Does anybody want to comment, or can I pick on somebody else again?
Sherry, I think Pavitra's hand is up.
Yes.
Pavitra, please
hi,
go
Sherry.
ahead.
Can I intervene? Thank you so much. So I attended actually two really good sessions today. The one on surveillance in the region, and then the second one on community measures to counter disinformation and hate. And I wanted to specifically speak about the second session. I found it quite interesting because I think it falls quite squarely on both the themes of inclusion and trust. And two very important or rather interesting things for me that came out of that session was first, I think, the sort of location of the problem, which is that fake news or misinformation and hate speech are being weaponized in the region, across the region, for sort of making existing divides around political, racial, ethnic, religious lines deeper, and that often the perpetrators of that misinformation or hate speech could in fact be the government themselves, right? And so the question then was, well, what do you do? Because you can't necessarily rely on the government to sort of provide a solution to this problem where they themselves might be a part of the reason why the problem is as bad as it is right now. And often that legislation around both hate speech and misinformation could be a double-edged sword, because it can be used by those very same governments to sort of restrict freedom of expression in the countries. And so there were two very interesting examples, case studies of Mafindo, which is a fact-checking organization from Indonesia, and then the Nest Center from Mongolia, where they spoke about a sort of community-driven approach to fact-checking and countering misinformation by using extremely transparent, tested sort of rules and methodologies which everyone could access, and about how they've basically been able to build a community of people who are then volunteering to be able to fact check and push back against some of the misinformation that happens. And also, I think what I found very interesting about it, which really speaks both to the question of inclusion and trust, is that they spoke about often the people who are the volunteers are often women and other minorities, perhaps by the sort of the way that volunteering is structured in these countries, but also because since they are on the receiving end of misinformation and hate speech, often are able to recognize the patterns easier. So yeah, that was sort of the feedback from that session, which I found quite interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavitra. In the chat, we also have a comment from Winston. I must confess that I'm not totally convinced that all UNESCO member states have really taken the IUI, Rome, etc. on board and incorporated them in their national digital planning. What is the evidence? Winston, do you want to take the mic and elaborate more on that?
Hi, Cherie. No, not really. I was just expressing a skepticism about this. I know that Zhang Hong is very convinced that the UNESCO Rome principles have been, adopted by the whole international community, but I just don't know. I see in my own country, in the public service in my own country, a certain ignorance about United Nations agencies and what they do, and a certain ignorance about UNESCO. And that ignorance is on the part of public servants who may be receiving orders to draw up, to define policies from their ministers. But I don't necessarily know for sure how much of that instruction to draw up policy is actually based on a true understanding of, my country's international, acceptance of the international conventions and instruments that it's actually signed up to. I mean, how many civil servants really do know what their country has signed up to? I hate to say this, but the Anglosphere is a very skeptical place, and it's rather navel gazing. And the UNESCO National Commission in New Zealand is run by the Ministry of Education. It's a civil society group, but it's actually located in the Ministry of Education, which is not the most high profile Department of State. So the National Commission is actually a small organization. It depends on its links with foreign affairs. It depends on its links with many other ministries to actually do things. It takes government information or information about New Zealand's international responsibilities, and it feeds this information to civil society groups. But whether it feeds this information equally to public service departments, I'm just not sure. So, that's a long way of saying UNESCO might think its principles and indicators have been implemented, but I'm not sure. I would like to see, I would have to go and talk to my colleagues in other departments and see if we really have some sort of assessment internally in this country to see what we have done to apply those indicators and principles. That's all I'm saying. That's a pretty terrible thing to have to say, but I will see if I can follow up and get some evidence. Okay.
Thank you, Winston. I can also see in the chat that Edmonds mentioned, I think the IUI still requires a lot of advocacy and promotion. Agree with Winston. I think it needs support. Also see Aris saying on the chat, agree with Edmund. Also, would their framework be like the one of internet governance? Does anybody know that might be able to answer that for us? A lot of discussions here in the chat. Please bear with me while I read them. From Swaran, the interesting discussion by speakers in S13, weaponization of surveillance amid a pandemic in Asia Pacific has perhaps given the participants that much needed awareness on lobbying for legislation pertaining to data privacy in their countries. Swaran, would you like to elaborate on that or tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that session as a fellow?
Hi, Sherry. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to speak about that aspect in particular, because it also happens to be something that I have been lobbying for as well. and not just in my current role in academia, but also with other universities in different regions. And it was quite shocking, to be honest, to realize that many developed countries are still lacking in the right legislations pertaining to data privacy, and that's just going to become an even bigger issue as we progress through these different variants, or we transition from variant to variant, and then obviously we are starting to use the digital space more than ever. So I found that quite shocking that it all of a sudden it sort of hits you to realize that this hasn't been happening. We haven't been lobbying enough, and maybe this just is the right push for us to lobby for the right legislations. Sherry, I think if you think of some of the examples we in Fiji go through, when we talk about creation of ICT policies for organizations, and I've been heavily involved in that. So when I create ICT policies for organizations, one of my go-to places is, of course, the Constitution and whatever little legislation we do have pertaining to ICT. And in addition to that, I always tell my clients that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is quite an inclusive document. So we can use some of the aspects of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and then from there to our constitution and our legislation. But even after all that, we see there are huge gaps. And to address those gaps, of course, we need more legislation, or else we may be charging people, or people would be probably paying far less penalty of what they actually deserve. And then there's going to be no motivation for data privacy within the organization. So, for example, if you see what's happening with any fake news, misinformation that goes up on social media, and in Fiji in particular, whatever you put on social media is basically public domain. Anyone can copy anything you put on social media. Any idea you put in social media becomes an article for even a journalist, and you cannot hold that against them. So it also makes me think about copyright, patents. In Fiji, some of the researchers that I've spoken to, some people have even started to rethink about participating in conferences, because as we have spoken about many times, it becomes an avenue for harvesting of ideas, and then somebody else takes credit for that. So there's no legislation around that either. So copyright is something still very technical, and it's not being addressed as well, and it does not motivate researchers either. So when we talk about legislation, I think it goes right from being safer in the cyberspace to breach of data policies within the organization. But also maybe it would be interesting to see if there is a study globally done to see if the existence of a good ICT policy within the organization does definitely contribute to less breaches. I've seen some studies regarding that. There was one that was done 10 years ago in UK, and some of those problems are still there. And that is a clear indication that there is some gap in legislation which we need to start lobbying about. That's something that that got me thinking today. Thank you. And thank you to the team that presented. Thanks.
Thank you, Swaran. Great feedback. There's a comment from Pavitra. Agree, Swaran. I think the issues related to function creep, especially the lack of data protection laws that allow that to happen, and the impact on human rights as a result are important for us to note. There's a comment by Bong. After that one, it says S13. Actually, it's not just the weaponization of surveillance, but even of one policy fits all approach to the pandemic. Bong, can I ask you to elaborate on that? If you're okay to just unmute yourself and say a bit more.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually referring to a sort of hardline manner by which the pandemic policies were being implemented in my country in particular. And these are being enabled in the cyberspace by paid trolls. and these paid trolls are traced to the government itself. As a matter of fact, we have a department called the Presidential Communications Office that has employed at least 5,000 people to be, doing the propaganda for the government. And what is sad about that is that these trolls extol the state's actions and programs to the disadvantage of those affected. For example, many were arrested for cyber libel at the outset of the pandemic. One teacher, for example, because she questioned the mayor who brought the rice supplies to I think to his personal warehouse, and so the mayor got angry and got the teacher arrested. There are other cases, for example, like a minor who was caught violating curfew and was put inside a sack by the community leaders, by the barangay officials. And you would see that in the Facebook in particular, these trolls are actually praising this kind of violations. And so it's really very sad that there is no more space for a free expression, because the trolls are lording it over our cyberspace. And so I raised the question earlier in the session, if IGF can help in discouraging states from engaging into this kind of dirty work, like cyber war of disinformation and at times psychological warfare. Thanks.
Thank you, Bong. Is there anybody who would like to give a reply to Bong on the question he has raised earlier in the sessions? Might be able to give him an answer now from the MSG, maybe. Raj, is it okay if I put you on the spot for that? Did somebody else want to answer that? Fo, did you have something you wanted to say?
Hello, everyone. I would like to just agree with what the Bong said. Can you hear me? Anyway, okay.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, the same cases are happening in Myanmar as well. Because of the digital surveillance, many protesters got arrested, and also the democracy activists got arrested because of the digital surveillance became the weapon for those who try to control the protests. That is, I would like to agree that point, that if we need to discuss about the kinds of issue in the Internet Governance Forum, and we can't ignore that issue, because if many governments practice that kinds of the how can I say, that kinds of tricks, tracking information to hinder the protest or something like that. That's not good for the world, I think, for our future too. Also, we can see that some other countries are also facing that kinds of issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. There is a comment in the chat from Diksha adding on to the ongoing conversation. It is very valid for us to be skeptical about the government and its commitment to ensure digital rights, because there are examples where government has been working with big tech for propaganda to spread misinformation and such. The government across the world seems reluctant to do things to ensure people digital rights, data privacy, because the big corporations have been profiting off people's data. There's quite a bit of long comments coming through the chat. Pavitra, would you like to add on to your comment on the chat from there? You mentioned, I think this problem exists across the region, Swaran, and it doesn't help that we don't have an internationally recognized definition of hate speech. The issue is often that governments treat speech with double standards, labeling them hate speech or defamation when it's unfavorable to them, but ignoring it when it actually impacts minorities or other marginalized groups.
Sure, Sherry. Just to sort of, I guess, a response to what Swaran was saying around this problem with people recognizing hate speech, and that definitely is a problem that we've seen across the region, and governments certainly contribute to it because legislations on hate speech are often vague. The way that they are implemented is not uniform. They're often targeted. So when I was saying earlier that legislation could be a double-edged sword, this is sort of what I was referring to, right? Because often legislations on misinformation and hate speech tend to in fact be used to target dissidents, target people who are speaking against the government, as opposed to actually looking at the proliferation of hate speech or misinformation in the region, which is why they're often not sort of touted as solutions to the problem. Which is why I actually found the solutions of sort of these community-driven awareness-raising campaigns on hate speech or on misinformation, and sort of us doing more through civil society measures as a way to counter the problem which often arises from the government.
Thank you, Pavitra. Nirosha, I missed your comment from earlier on S8, building digital information literacy skills for trust and well-being was a good one. I really interested today discussed about information literacy. They are discussed about how the libraries help during the pandemic. Further, we discussed about game addiction. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that session and what was discussed, please.
Thank you so much giving opportunity. Actually, it was a really interesting one. So in there we have discussed about, like I have already given in the chat, so how the information literacy help during the pandemic situation, and also further it's explained how the Nepal it was happened in the rural area and what initiations has they have already taken, and how the government help and other countries how it was going on like that. So in the discussion time, we have discussed with the pandemic situation, where children and before the pandemic, they don't have the digital devices, access of digital devices. But during the pandemic time, in the education purposes and all, they have to use the digital devices, and so, and also then it's as a result there was a social issue came in, like the game addiction and sort of a thing. So so then we discuss about how to overcome these issues, like, and also we communicate like internet is a good one, but there are some social issues also raised. So these type of interesting things were discussed in that session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirosha. Rohit, I can see your hand is up. Would you like to go ahead and comment?
Yeah, so I actually have a question. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was checking about the Google sandbox effect. So this is the name given to the observation, the way Google ranks their web pages. And Google has come up with, I know it is a monopoly market. It has a lot of products that we continuously use. But there is certain thing that I noticed was about they hold a lot of data from our cookies. Like we submit them, the user IDs, the password, there are bits and chunks of pieces, and they keep using that, and that is how they use it over us. Another thing, what I noticed was like they are fined heavily. They are fined for at least 10% of whatever revenue they earn every year. Now, I am feeling that, these big corporations are okay with giving up money with their fines and still going up with their practices. What do you think should they be doing, or people like us who are controlling the internet should be doing, so that corporations like us, they don't have a control over us? I'm done with my question.
Thank you, Rohit. Is there anybody from the floor that would like to add to Rohit's comment or answer his question?
Sherry, this is Jen. Maybe I'll just take this time to remind everyone we really do appreciate and value your inputs in the chat, which is very vigorous and robust. Please don't be shy, actually, not do be shy. Don't be shy, and put your hand up and speak your thoughts to the room, because, we can see the chat, but people who are looking at the live stream and other things may not be able to benefit from being able to participate in the chat. So please do put your hand up and speak your input.
Thank you, Jen. Cheryl, please go ahead. I can see your hand up. Rohit, please put your question in the chat. I think there's a lot of answers coming through the chat as well. Cheryl, please go ahead.
Well, it depends on whether or not my audio is audible. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yay! Okay, Cheryl from Australia. Right, let me give you a very personal knee-jerk reaction on some of what you've just raised. All important things to raise, I will hasten to add. But it's not the size of the company. An emerging company, one that's just a Kickstarter out of a garage, gee, it could have been Google some time back, is still going to be hungry for control and aspects that many of us are concerned about. So it's not a matter of size, it's a matter of perspective. And from my point of view, what we need to do is find ways to engage with all parties, including the big kids in camping industry, et cetera, those who you would argue quite reasonably are using our data for their profit, to see things from an end user perspective. But at the same time, we need to be able to learn to see things from what is the basis from their choices and why they would be making certain decisions that they either have done or perhaps will do in the future. And I think if we can look towards some mutualisation, some trust and communication, we may be able to further the discussion and debate. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl, from your perspective. We appreciate that feedback. Before I go on to anybody else that would like to comment, is there anyone here from the SIG session this afternoon? So earlier in the chat, and I was also in that session about how it had to adapt because of the pandemic and, with virtual meetings. I'd like to hear feedback or comments from anyone that was there in the SIG session. While we're waiting for that, there was a comment earlier from an example from Nepal. how the legislation could be misused. Dozens of online media news sites were blocked earlier this year, allegedly for spreading fake news. So agree that legislation sometimes could be a double-edged sword, exploited by government to repress legislative expressions as well. So there's a comment also earlier from Bong on S8. Internet education should be part of the life skills training, since we also need to teach young people to protect themselves from harm in the internet and not just its beneficial use. Guys, we have, how much more time do we have, Jen? Is it slightly more than the 5 minutes on the timer?
I think it's okay for us to overrun a little bit since we are at the last session of the day.
Okay. Yeah, would you like to comment about your sessions today or something?
Yes, I would like to comment about the enhances the digital information literacy programs and campaign in the developing country. Because I often see in my country that people don't have the very much knowledge about the digital information literacy. Because of that, the hate speech and the propaganda, otherwise the fake news are spreading very rapidly, very rapidly. But people are only following up these fake news only, but not trying to think about how this news is came from, what is the original source of this news. Just only few young people, very few young people are trying to tell them that what are the fake news, what are the original source of the news, what kinds of news are we can rely with for during this political turmoil. I could see that there are some fact-checking pages on the social media platform for providing the reliable information and also reliable news by resharing the sources from the reliable sources such as the media and also like the CSO organization report or something like that. That is, I would like to comment that the digital information literacies are urgently needed to those people who are living in the developing country. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We have that problem here in Fiji as well. The news that comes out of Facebook is taken as the official news. People would rather follow what is said through Facebook or spread the loudest and far-reaching. We've had problems around, fake news, misinformation, right up to the take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine. So the reasons for that as well here in Fiji. Afik, I can see that you've got your hand up. Would you like to comment?
Yes, I just would like to add what Pio has said. I believe it also happens in everywhere in the world, and it also happens in Malaysia as well, where we have problems with hate speech and problem with disinformation and so on. And at the end, I believe it's not belong to one person to take effort, but it takes a collective effort from every stakeholders, the government, technical communities, academia, and all to improve and provide a better solution in combating this kind of disinformation and hate speech throughout the internet, especially on the social media. As the social media has been a really important platforms for communications, at the end of the day, I believe there are 4 proposed areas that we might look and consider, whereby we need to enhance current legal response. And the second one, maybe we could develop more digital literacy. The third one, we need to review the accountability of the platforms. And 4, maybe we can strengthen the fact-checking mechanism. That is from my point of view.
That's really great. Thank you, Afik. Any chance I could ask you to put that into the comments platform?
I will try to make it before the time's end.
Sure, no worries.
Okay.
I think we have a week or two, which will be open the public comments. There's some chatter in the chat about the showcase sessions today from Nirosha. Most attractive session was showcased on Internet Technical Success Factor. They used menti.com for asking questions and very much attractive. Showcase 2, Internet's Technical Success Factors. We see Cheryl is also agreeing with that it was exceptional. So guys, we have about 5 minutes. Does there anybody else that would like to put their hands up and comment? Somebody mentioned the heavy use of digital space contributes to carbon footprints. I think that was Edmund, and how online conferences inevitably contributes to this. Maybe as a suggestion of a solution, maybe we can start thinking about offsetting the carbon footprints caused by conferences by alternative greener compensations. That's also was there in the chat. So Sukman Preet says, I am the type of person who is listening to everyone. Currently, I'm listening to everyone whom are sharing their thoughts, thoughtful ideas. Are you sure you don't want to say something? We'd love to hear your comments. Rohit, I see that you've put 2 comments about big corporations. Would you like to elaborate them? Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Sure, Sherry. So I was reading that Facebook has these people, they call them moderators, who control all the videos and the images that are being shared on Facebook. And these are images with explicit content. So they have horrendous images which shouldn't be on such platforms. And they have a lot of basically truth also, and things that you cannot be shown because it has a certain age group. Now, what I also read about these people are, because as they're witnessing this on everyday basis, so there is a shortage of these moderators who are available to control the free flow of information. Now, there is a scarcity of these moderators available on Facebook and other social media platforms, because these are the people who open the gates for you where you get your information. And if there is scarcity of these people, and you'll be getting anything and whatever you want, it's a misinformation basically. Now the problem, what happens over here is, if these people, they're facing mental health issues, that is one reason they don't take this job much forward. They probably quit in like 2 years or 3 years. That is what I read through, and I got to know from few people who are my friends. Now, how the corporations like this, they adapt to a new profile, or how they control, I guess we need to work on a new framework on these moderators who open the gates for us with information. That's all, Sherry.
Thank you for that, Rohit. Afik, is it a second hand, or is that your hand up from the last time?
Sorry, it's from the last time. I will take up my.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks much. Sorry, I only belatedly saw the message about the session on SIGs. So I was a speaker in that one, and it was a really great opportunity to share, but also to listen to the experience of how many other SIGs in the region and even beyond our region are trying to cope with COVID and still put out meaningful programming for people in their communities and their regions. And
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that it was a really good reminder of how, although we're not, in the session, it's not like we obviously, talk about the three main themes of, trust, inclusion, sustainability up front. But in actual fact, from all the conversations that we're having, it really just reinforces how all these three things, capacity building programs like SIGs, really take the nexus. They really form the nexus of all these three themes, and how COVID has impacted everybody who runs such programs is that essentially it's really, sort of destabilized, I think, the triangle nexus for every SIG, or whether it's for a PIGA that we run here in ICANN. And every school is trying to grapple with, okay, how are we going to adjust and how are we going to adapt such that, whether it's building trust with newcomers who are coming in, whether it's like, how can we be more inclusive now that everything's only online and things like that? How can we keep things, going in a sustainable form? Essentially, all these three corners of that triangle, every SIG is trying to find ways to rebalance those three and make it work. So to me, that really brought that through in a very, it's a really good reminder about that. And it was very refreshing to know that. So plenty of I guess all the schools are facing similar constraints, similar issues, but still trying to innovate and find ways to keep going, because one thing is although COVID impacts everybody, training needs in the community and the region don't disappear. So it's brought other opportunities. Like for some, it's meant that it's a new opportunity to really reach rural areas and reach out to people better. In other places, it's meant that you can really rethink programming on what else you can do different. So it's also a very evolutionary process because everybody's only going through it at the same time. So I really love that this, I guess more as a feedback. It was really great to have such a session, so that there's also an opportunity for such capacity building programs to share as we go along, because we otherwise also in current circumstances wouldn't really get to meet each other and sort of trade notes and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. And you mentioned capacity building. I remember Joyce mentioned that when we opened the town hall session yesterday, and that was mentioned in your sixth session as well as in Joyce's session. New ways. Yesterday, we also heard that in Samoa, they're also doing virtual plus blended learning as a way to adapt in this COVID environment. I've seen that the timer has gone off. I'm just going to read this comment from Afik in the chat. In providing better internet environment, combating disinformation, hate speech, etc., I believe it is collective effort from the government, technical communities, academia, and public at large. Through these efforts, we may consider to 1, enhance legal responses, 2, develop better digital literacy, 3, review the accountability of platform providers, and 4, strengthen the fact-checking initiative. So guys, really good points here. I know Jen and Brenda and the DC and I, we will do our best to incorporate this into the drafting document, but it would be really helpful if, you clicked on the link and went and put these in so that, it's all really well captured. I was part of a project earlier this year where a colleague from out of the region, we had to write a report about some things relating to the region, and he actually quoted from the drafting document from last year. So, it's recorded online, and we're always complaining there's not enough information for our region online. This is one of the places that people can also look to take information for issues that we're facing in this region. Thanks again, everyone, for a great session. I'm going to hand this time over back to Jen.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, everyone, for all your inputs. It was really, that's a lot of input for the drafting committee to look at, to synthesize. Please do remember to put that into the comment platform. The link has been put into the chat for you. What I really want to show you is where we are going next with this process. We will be keeping the comment platform open for the week that is the week after this meeting ends. So the whole of next week, you'll still have time to digest and think about all the things you've heard at APrIGF and put it in. And please, please, please do remember to do that, because the best thing for you to do is to put your input in your own words. Of course, we will also go through and make sure, these are captured, but, the best representative for you is yourself. After the comment period closes, the drafting committee will then go into another working phase to synthesize all this input into the draft 1. This will then go out for public comment again, just to make sure we've captured everything correctly and it looks good for us. And then finally, it will be published sometime in mid-November. This year, we are very lucky to have the support of the IGF Secretariat. Their grant provides us with some funding to be able to translate the APrIGF census documents into additional languages, which will help with the dissemination, especially in our region, since we are a region of very, very, very diverse languages and scripts. So before I close the session for today, I would like to remind everyone that, tomorrow we still have another day. It's our last day of the APrIGF. We will be starting at, I think it's 3 UTC. We will be starting earlier than today, actually. And we'll start with a session on the human rights impact of COVID-19 technologies and the role of business, which I think a lot of you have mentioned in this particular session about it. And then the other one that we'll start with is the internet rules, judicial and regulatory developments, digital rights in Asia. So please do join us again tomorrow. And thank you for your participation today. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow.